All right, what's going on there, folks? Good evening. It's the Earthmaster back here on this Saturday night. It is December 9th, 2023, about 10:41 p.m. California time here. A 4.4 earthquake striking way up into close to the China area, maybe into the Russia region, it looks like there on the earthquake 3D globe on this side of the mountain range. 4.4 looks like Russia area. All right, looking at California, see if we got anything stirring up out here. Following this movement this morning, it was kind of crazy. Quite a few threes out here and some twos out around the Salton Sea area. This is just off the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault on a little segment here called the Brawley Seismic Zone. Taking a look at the last earthquake, it looks like a 1.9 within that little area. That has been seeing some swarming going on there in the last 24 hours. So for now, it looks like things may have calmed down. Doesn't mean it's completely over, but a little temporary pause in the earthquake activity out there. There's that 3.2 earlier this morning that struck here just on the east side of this plate boundary. So still kind of watching this region, seeing some movement up here around the San Jacinto Fault Zone as well. Total tally, at least for earthquake activity in this region, is going to be about 30 or so. We did see, again, a couple of threes. Looks like 3.2 is the magic number. 4 of them, in fact, around this area. So we'll continue to keep the earthquake watch up there for the Southern California area overnight. See how it behaves as far as the plate boundary activity goes overnight and tomorrow. Nothing going on up here in Yellowstone. Looks a little quiet up there. I'm going to double check this and see what we got. Latest overview of Yellowstone National Park in a pretty neat layout here. This is going to be the Yellowstone supervolcano. Yellowstone Lake over here. Doesn't look like we're seeing too much earthquake activity. A handful of smaller quakes there in that area, but aside from that, looks generally quiet up there into the Wyoming region. Texas area getting hit with quite a few earthquakes out in the oil fields once again. And it looks like activity around Puerto Rico is starting to pick back up. We did see, of course, this earthquake this morning, a 5.7 coming in just south here of the Puerto Rico Trench, about 7 kilometers or so. The latest quake coming in as a 3.1. Still showing some activity up here across the Puerto Rico Trench, watching that pretty closely as well. And got a fairly significant swarm out here in the Bight Fracture Zone, close to the Orecanis Ridge, which extends out here. It's a divergent boundary, basically separation of the oceanic crust taking place here throughout the years, and that extends up here across Iceland. That's why we have so many volcanoes up there. This activity definitely stirring up 24 earthquakes here of some decent magnitudes, quite a few 4s and some low-grade 5s in there as well, specifically in this region. Now, uncertain on if it's provided any elevated uptick up there across the area of Grindavik. Let's double check that. Is this the most recent? Let me refresh this. I think this refreshes by itself, but I want to double check. There we go. All right, so about 35 earthquakes or so in the last 12 hours. Not for sure why it does that. It's weird. Not really seeing anything significant in terms of uptick in earthquake activity out here. This is generally light compared to the weeks past here that we've seen that elevated earthquake activity and, of course, that magma intrusion here below the surface around the Hagefeld northward area. But it doesn't look like, for now anyway, we're seeing any further uptick in earthquake activity. And the last update here from the Icelandic Met Office was put out a few days ago there on the 6th. And they were just talking about the potential migration of magma below the surface, that maybe that this is not going to be the area anymore where we'll see the eruption that could take place somewhere else. But the chances of an eruption happening along the dike at this time have therefore significantly decreased. However, magma accumulation continues beneath the Svartsengi area. We'll see if they put out an update. More likely it's going to be on Monday, but unless something changes, unless we get some further uptick here, that's just going to be how it is. It's just we get these inflation events, and not all the time does the magma break through to the surface. And in this case, I think it's good news. All right, out there on the big island of Hawaii, looks like things stirring up out here outside of Pahala. The last one showing a 1.7 here in the last hour. The Kilauea volcano, not really seeing anything up here across that area as far as earthquake movement goes. Let me bring up the... I want to check out the tilt meter, make sure I got the most recent updated tilt meter data. We've been watching this thing come and go. It looks like we're starting to decline slightly, but not completely. This is the past 2 days of inflation around the Kilauea volcano summit area. It has been heightened, and we're still up there. Looks like earlier today we did peak out at the highest level compared to all the previous inflation level events, and that would mark the highest level of inflation in the past 5 years or so, since the 2018 eruption. That was a little bit more dramatic and opened up some fissures outside of the lava lake area to the east. And like I said, we're still kind of up there in terms of inflation. We'll continue to watch that. Nothing major going on as far as volcanic activity goes. You know, earthquake activity, it looks like it has died down also. There's a handful of earthquakes here around the Kilauea volcano, but temporary deflation event would coincide with the decreasing earthquake activity. Just one of those things, kind of watching it. It's been an interesting couple months watching this thing. I still think the likelihood here, and this is just my own observation here and studying, is that we're going to see some fissures open up across some older fissure zones potentially, or southeast here in that rift zone. All right, let's back out of here. There's an earthquake from last night, 3.6. So what's been going on here, aside from movement out in the North Atlantic? Well, we're getting a pretty good cluster of earthquake activity once again here across the Philippines. That's more noticeable here on the Earthquake 3D globe. Starting to spread out a little bit, getting some deeper movement here in the Izu Trench. Deeper activity south here of the Philippines. Definitely some big-time movement going on here in the last week or so. Let's see what we got for a total tally in this area. I mean, that's a lot of earthquake activity. Goodness. 147 earthquakes of some decent magnitudes there. Look at this. Well, where's our... do we have to go back a little bit further? There we go. So it's been over a week, probably, 8 days, 9 days? So the more... This goes back to the last 30 days here. 277 earthquakes. And that includes, of course, the 7.6, the main quake. I had to show that on here because that's kind of the main thing that kicked all this activity off. Seeing the largest aftershock as a 6.9. And that's a lot of earthquake activity. Goodness, a lot of 5s, a lot of 6s, and, of course, the main quake there. And looking at today's activity has shown it declining quite a bit here. A little bit of migration here south. A little bit further south along the Philippine Trench in the 4 range, but still somewhat elevated, specifically in this region of this clustering of plates here. It's just it's a huge crunch, so to speak, in terms of momentum and pressure out here in this area. And they always get some large earthquakes out there for sure. Not a whole lot of migration up against the Java Trench for now. New Zealand getting some activity, it looks like. Some 3 stirring up out there. So let's go double check, see what we got here before we move on. GeoNet servers is just one of the sites you can use to monitor activity out there in New Zealand. Looks like 16 minutes ago got a 2.6. Another 2.6 22 minutes ago, 3.1, 2.3. Doesn't look like anything big taking place out here. They would know it. We would know it, right? It'd be showing up on the map. So just some generally small microquake activity here, mainly across the looks like the North Island station, and there's not even a lot showing up here on these earthquake drums. Some activity down south as well into South Island, but these charts look really quiet if you think about it. For a major plate boundary, these are awfully quiet. All right, further to the west here, there's one earthquake off the coast of Pakistan, 4.2. from earlier this evening, it looks like. And let's see what else we got across the Mediterranean. Not a whole lot showing up here on the USGS map. Looks like some 3s, maybe a couple 4s out there around the Mediterranean Sea region. And some other smaller quake activity here across the Spain region. And got that big cluster going on out here in the Bight. Is that what it's called? Double check here. BIGHT. I'm pretty certain that's just Bight fracture zone. I'm not for sure how else you would pronounce that, but either way, gonna watch this. With this elevated activity here, it's possible we could see things elevated across Iceland, but it's just not showing it yet. I think it will soon if it does have any effect on it at all. Of course, we're looking at 2, 4, 6, maybe 600 miles up along the plate boundary, but realistically, I mean, 600 miles for us is a lot, but in terms of plate dynamics, this is just a little piece of the jigsaw puzzle that moves around and separates, and no doubt it could easily affect areas upstream or downstream. All right, let's see what else we got here. I'm going to check out space weather. Before we do that, let's go to Trimmer. See if we got anything going on. That's a pretty good number there, 310. 310 epicenters of tremor here, somewhat elevated. This is probably one of the more elevated events we've seen here in the last few weeks, I believe. What was yesterday? Did I even check that? 16. So today is more of the elevated event. The southern end here of the Cascadia subduction zone showing some strain, indicating some tremor going on downstream there, about 45 kilometers into the subduction zone. Now, of course, tremor, right? How do you get that tremor? With strain and stress, right? We're shoving that Juan de Fuca plate, a portion of it anyway, underneath the North American plate here. So we're looking at increasing tension out here across this area of the plate boundary. And it's not really shown at the surface levels. We're really not seeing any elevated movement here, but we'll keep our eyes open out here. Maybe we'll see a little further uptick because of that stress up here against the southern end of the Cascadia. All right, let's see what else we got here for the space weather activity. And then we'll look at the weather. Seen a pretty bad day today for severe weather. They did issue an enhanced risk for some severe weather, so hopefully folks took heed to some of the warnings out there today. Seen a lot of damage. Space weather activity got a little bit of flaring going on once again. Looks like we did see an M flare earlier today from, is that going to be 3511? Looks like 3511 there. Far side sunspot, and that one, not necessarily far side, but it will be here soon. This is a western limb down here, staying pretty active, but it will be out of sight, out of mind, out of view pretty soon. And we're left with a couple different regions here, maybe potentially active conditions prevailing way out on the eastern limb. We'll get a better view of those in the coming days. Right now, the main threat looks like this region right here. Is this the most recent data? Yes, shows 1210. That's technically for a lot of people, but here in California, it's still, and that's UTC time as well. So looking at 3513, that's going to be this region right here. It's almost directly facing Earth. And unfortunately, just looking at this, though, it looks like things are decaying slightly within the main core. I think it still harbors a little percentage of some flaring, but it doesn't look like it's growing at all. If anything, it looks like it's decaying. And this region down here, goodness, the one that produced the M flare here recently, it's growing and it's getting fairly complex here. Down here on the southeastern limb, a little bitty sunspot. So overall threat right now, let's see what we got. 99% chance for a C flare. M flare at 55. X flare has been elevated, jumped up to 10% chance. What is given the 10% chance here? Looks like 3513 and 3511 are two sunspots there of noteworthy mention. It's going to be the ones down here and 3513 up here. So it looks like maybe they still believe that there's a potential for some stronger flaring within this core. So we'll keep an eye on it and see how it behaves. No major auroras forecasted here. Things look pretty quiet on the KP index for now. Yeah, storm reports today. Goodness. This is from the National Weather Service here for 12/9. Look at these tornado reports. These are confirmed tornado reports. Quite a few touching down and doing some damage. 19, folks. 19. Now, these zones right here, I'm not for sure if they were in the area. This is changed, obviously, but this morning when we looked at this, there was a pretty broad area up here. I'm not for sure if those tornadoes touched down in the enhanced area, or if it was in the slight category, or if it was maybe in the 5% chance for tornadoes. Either way, it just goes to show you how these tornadoes can pop up and form in the in an environment like this. And it doesn't have to be specifically in the enhanced area. It can happen outside of that zone. And that's why it's pretty important whenever we get these events to, make sure you guys pay attention to the weather reports and keep an eye on the sky. Wind reports, there was about 34 of them. Hail reports, some large hail. You can see in the green circle or green triangles, about 61. So total severe weather reports here of 116. But that tornado report there, 21. Goodness. So, there was quite a few. Here's some of the information here on the reports. These are tornado reports here. Quite a few tree down, and but we've seen some areas out there, some populated areas get hit, unfortunately. Let's get back here and see what we got for the rest of tonight. Looks like still a little slight risk for some severe weather overnight here in this area. Looks like tomorrow a little bit different day here. Although there's a slight risk for some severe weather out here across portions of North Carolina. There is a large area of 2% tornado probability and 5% chance there as well. So not as advanced as today, but still there's a broad area of potential for some severe weather. So please be weather aware tomorrow for this event, which will be Sunday. After that, things look like they clear up a little bit and not a whole lot of severe weather potential after that. Numerical models out here, this is going to show us that frontal system there kind of taking off and heading to the east coast, some colder air behind it. Of course, that cold, dry air intermixing with the warmer, moist air, that's how you get that severe weather. Northern California out here, that storm system does not want to enter into the dome of California. It backs off and completely dries up, unfortunately. But the pattern change out here, I think towards middle of December, maybe a little bit thereafter, we're looking at some moisture coming in from a different direction, up from the south. And that type of activity brings in quite a bit of rainfall here to the west coast. It's a few days out, but the general trend here is still aiming towards a wetter pattern change for the California region. Let me back out here. Oops, don't need soundings out there in the ocean. Go over here to the North Pacific, and this is kind of cool. We're going to go to the upper air dynamics, the jet stream, so to speak, out here. And a lot of times the storm systems form and ride the jet stream out here, and those powerful storms can hit the California area. It looks like potentially, I'm watching this area right here. It looks like there's a line that wants to form here, and if we can get that zonal flow from west to east, we would be talking about significant amount of storm systems impacting the west coast. It's trying to. It's getting stronger. There's a couple breaks in here, but the overall trend is aiming towards this type of flow from Asia eastward, and we get a lot of storm systems that would run into the west coast. So fingers crossed we have some decent rainfall coming up in the months ahead. Let's go back here to the region, southwest. I want to look at the total accumulated precipitation and run out here and see what we have as we head into about Christmas time for December. Now, this is just one model, one estimate. Decent amount of rainfall up here. across Northern California over these several runs. Now, this is a combination of all the storms from now to the 26th of December. Here in Sacramento Valley, not impressive. Maybe an inch and a half, maybe 2 inches or so for a total tally. That's a lot better than what we've seen. And that rainfall could be extending down into Southern California as well. But, I'm hopeful that January, February, and March will be our big players in terms of, getting us some moisture out here across the West Coast. We need it for sure. All right, guys, stay safe out there. Hopefully, hopefully there won't be too much of a severe weather threat tomorrow. But again, you just got to be weather aware. Crazy how tornadoes can pop up at the almost the middle of December. All right, we got a little earthquake there in Chile, but Southern California looks pretty quiet right now. Little spike of an earthquake there on Hot Caves, Hawaii. But for now, I'm going to leave it about these stations right here because Southern California is pretty important with that little earthquake activity taking place here today. It may be quiet for now, but things can change in the blink of an eye with just a little adjustment out here across the West Coast. So continue to keep the earthquake watch up in effect for now. Hope everyone has a great Saturday night. Please stay safe out there no matter what you're doing. And we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow for our Sunday morning update. Take care, folks.